I know it's not a knife, but this is my wife's favorite gardening tool, shovel. She broke it the other day. Come apart, I looked at it, so I think I'm just gonna try to make her a new one. So I got a piece of flat leaf spring I cut off here. I think that's gonna become the shovel, okay? It's really interesting how thin it is. But this piece right here, I think I'm going to maybe leaf shape it a little bit and put a little bend in it, and that'll be what rivets onto the shovel. And then this socket that I made here out of this pipe. So I was forging the other day, I finished up, I grabbed a piece of pipe, I stuck it in my press and I started squeezing it and turning it and squeezing it and turning it with the round dies on it, and ended up squeezing it, cutting this off, and then you can see how sharp these shoulders are. So I went ahead and heated this up and hammered the cone a little better on it, and I think that's going to be my socket. But instead of putting a wood handle or something like that in, I'm thinking about pouring a resin handle, something interesting. But I guess this is this week's project, a shovel, something I'm totally not familiar with. But so let's see what happens. So I got the forge lit up. Now I'm fixing to throw this piece of leaf spring in, and I just went ahead and cut down to that hole, cut that notch out where I can get a hold of it with tongs. But I kind of marked the center line, and I took my angle grinder, I just eyeballed it. I just cut a couple V's. This is going to be the center part of my shovel where the handle will rivet, I believe. But I'm going to go ahead and squeeze on these lines, push this steel out in all directions. That's probably a 1/4 inch, 5/16 of an inch thick, maybe. 1/4 inch, probably closer, but here's what I got to get to. Can you see that? Oh my gosh, it's, I don't know if I can even get to that thin, but we'll see. Let's give it a whirl. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say, on this shovel, I'm gonna do a stock removal. My goal is really just get it down as thin as I can get it. It's 5160, we'll see. But right now I'm just trying to get it thin, and I want to leave that little high spot in the center for a later reason. Okay, so there's a shovel in there. You can't really see my raised triangle that I've got there in the center, but that piece I made earlier I think is going to work really well fitting on that. But we'll let it cool off, and I'll cut a shovel shape out of it, and we'll see where that goes. So day 2 on the shovel. So there's what I forged out. There's what I forged out. Now I just cut my shape out of what I forged out, but I forged a little high kind of triangle shape right here, trying to give it a little backbone. So this is my piece that's going to rivet on right here, and I don't think I made this long enough, so I'm going to extend that up about another 1/2 inch or whatever. But I'm going to take this back and stick it back in the forge. It's too thick, so we're going to go ahead and thin it down quite a bit. So here we go. Let's light the forge. All right, day 3 on the shovel. So here's the shovel. You can see I've forged this raised part here in the center. It's flat on this side. So I did that hoping that when I heat treat it and everything, it'll actually give it some backbone. So she'll be able to stick it in the ground and actually pry and stuff with it. And I've got it much thinner, as you can see. So I think we're going to clean it up. I extended the flat piece here that I've done, and this is what's going to go on the back. And I'm going to put a couple rivets in this, and everything from here down will be heat treated, hardened. So I will do this in one, and I will do this after I get it mounted on the socket. The socket won't harden, it's non-hardenable steel, but I will weld this in good, clean it all up, and then I will do I'll do an annealing cycle on it just to take care of the metal where I'm welding, get it all back to a good crystal structure, be strong. I'll get my holes in it, and then I will heat treat this. And then I will rivet these two together. We'll see how it goes. But let's get this ground and cleaned up where I can actually look at it good, get it laid out, and we'll be back. I got the shovel cleaned up and symmetrical, looks pretty good now. I really like the way one side worked, so I just made me a template off one side, flipped it over, marked it, and then ground to fit, so I end up with a nice symmetrical shovel. I got my backbone raised up there in the center. I think you might be able to see it. So I didn't record a whole lot because I was sitting here staring at it a lot. But I got my cone cut off to the length I want. I got my piece that's going to attach to the shovel. I got it cleaned up a little bit. I got my cone cut off, and I got that just stuck down in there. I mean, it's on tight. I'm planning on welding this solid all the way around, cleaning it up where it'll be mostly invisible. But this is going to attach on the back of the shovel like that. So it's starting to look like a shovel. So I think what I'm going to do now is get the handle cleaned up, welded, and then we'll have a look at it. I got to pour a resin handle here, so we'll see what happens. So here's something I just thought about. So I want this cone to be really straight, true, centered. I couldn't come up with a way. And then I thought, I'll just do this. I got a little pocket screwdriver with a magnet on the end of it. I chucked it up in my drill. I'm gonna stick it on it and spin it. Have a look at it. You know what? That looks pretty true to me. Good enough to weld. After the weld, I tacked it, I checked it, and then I welded it up. Here we go after the weld. You know what? I can absolutely live with that. So there it is. Welded, cleaned up. So remember, I'm still going to harden this when I harden this. But I think we're getting a lot closer here. What do you think? Think it'll look pretty good like that? With the resin handle and something special in it. Remember, I'm making this for my wife, so I'm going all out on it. But what do we got to do now? I think I want to heat this and try to press it around this handle somehow, but I'm not for sure exactly how. So let me think on it and I'll come up with something. Here's my thought process. So I want to press this where the shovel kind of cups around this. This will actually be inside a little bit and give it a little more strength. But the only thing I can come up with is this. So my thought process, I got a squaring die in my bottom jaw, and I've got a flat die in my top. So I'm gonna heat my shovel up. I'm gonna set it in there. I'm gonna take my handle, I'm gonna set on top and press it down, and my thought process is that little bit of V give a place to push that down. So I'll either mess it up or I won't. I went through a couple dry runs trying to see if this is gonna work in the press. I'm just gonna go for it. That's all I can do. Well, I got exactly what I was wanting to get. So you can see how it mashed it down. So now this fits right in that slot like it was made for it, and it's gonna raise the shovel handle just a hair. All right? After several hours of just staring at it, because I didn't know how to get where I wanted to go, I'm happy with the progress that I've made today. So there's my shovel. I got it pressed like I wanted. You can see it rises up. It actually, I pressed it onto that to fit that, so it's going to fit it perfect. Everything seems to be lined up pretty good. So the next step is I'm going to get the shovel cleaned back up, set it in there, maybe drill some holes, and then we're going to have to put my stamp on it, put some curve in it so it looks like a shovel, and then we're going to have to heat treat both of these pieces, and then after that we're going to pour a resin handle, shape the handle, and get it put together. I'm actually going to hot rivet this together, so I'll make a couple rivets. I'm thinking 2 to 3 rivets, but I'm thinking 3. But we will get it riveted together and have a shovel. I think it's day 3 or 4 on the shovel, not for sure. It's been a few days since I've been back to it. The rivets give me a fit. So here's where we're at. I just got a couple screws in it holding it together. I got some holes drilled in it. You can tell this actually got hard enough I couldn't drill it. I had to take a torch and anneal it back a little so I could drill it, but I got my holes in it. I like the way it fits up. I still gotta stamp it, put my touch mark on it, and I have to bend it a little to shape it like a shovel, and then I'll take and pour the resin handle. So I said the rivets were giving me a fit. I couldn't figure out exactly what I wanted to do on it, and I ended up going to my local Mills Iron Supply, a plug for Mills, a locally owned hardware store, an actual hardware store. And I found, because it's Mills and you can find anything there, I found these perfect little 3/16 inch steel rivets. They are the exact length that I need. I will just rivet them over. They are going to work beautifully, and it saved me so much time because I really want to get this handle poured. But where we're at right now, I believe I am going to lay this out just a little bit. I'm going to get it in the forge. I'm going to stamp my touch mark on it. Oh, so after putting it together and holding on to it a little bit, it seemed to have a couple hot spots right here. So what I'm going to do, you can see I marked it just a little bit. I'm just going to take a round wheel on my grinder and round that in a little bit to make it fit my hand a little better. I think she'll like it better like that. But I'm going to get it ground, I'll light the forge, and we'll be back. Okay, I got my shovel laid out. I got it taken apart. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the forge, set everything up, put my touch mark on this, and then I think I'm going to screw these back together. I got a couple stainless steel screws I'll stick in it, and then I'll quench all this together. My thought is if anything warps weird or whatever, maybe they'll work together and still fit. So if you remember, the center part of my shovel where that handle attaches is actually raised up, so I don't want to smash it down when I do my touch mark. So I just took this piece of metal, cut off of that, and made a little shim. I'll put it right here on my anvil, and that way when I set my shovel head right there, it'll set perfectly flat, and I'll do my touch mark. Alright, we'll let that cool off and bolt it back together. Okay, I got it bolted back together. So now I'm gonna stick it in the forge and I'm gonna bend the sides up and try to put a dish in it. And, I don't know, try to make it look like a shovel. We're going to normalize it 1 or 2 cycles, and I'm just going to stand it on the cone because the cone's not hardenable metal, so it's not going to harden. Let's normalize it. So we'll let it cool off until I can just pretty much handle it, and then we're going to quench it. I already got my oil heating up. Okay, so after the heat treat, let it cool off. I hit it with the wire wheel, and then I went ahead and hit them with the Scotch-Brite belt. Looks pretty good. Went ahead and took them apart so I could clean everything real good. Now these things fit together. Oh, it's just such a nice fit. So I'm going to go ahead and screw them back together, and then I'm going to temper them in the oven, screwed together. Again, in case I have any warps, they can warp together. So far, it's exactly like what I wanted it to look like. So we're back at the shovel today. I got it heat treated, stamped, tempered. Kind of has an interesting little gold color after the tempering, that perfect straw color. I got exactly what I wanted on the tempering. So I just went out and cut a couple sticks off of the hazelnut tree, and I actually took some 5-minute epoxy and I glued them in there just to hold them stiff. So my thought is I'm going to mount this in the vise. I'm going to glue my locust on there. So this is interesting. I had locusts drying out here pinned up on this, and something ate them. Not a trace. I took about a 4-foot king snake out of here the other day, but I don't know. It blew my mind. I had to get a couple new locusts this morning. I put them in alcohol. They haven't dried as much as I would like, but I'm ready to do this. So I'm gonna get this in the vise. I'm gonna get my plugs. I think I'm just gonna super glue them. I'll see how that works. Be a lot faster than the 5-minute epoxy. But I'm gonna get my locust on here, and then I've got this piece of a plastic notebook I cut off. I got it marked. I'm gonna lay it around here, tape it, and try to make a mold out of that to put in my pressure pot and pour it full of resin. So let's just see what happens. Well, that was a pain in the butt, but I think I'm ready to pour. So here's my handle. I mounted it to a block so I can set it in my pressure chamber over there. And I got my bugs mounted to the sticks. I got everything centered up. It's hard to see, but everything's centered up. Nothing's touching the mold, if you want to call it that. But I'm ready to mix up some resin and pour it. So I got a couple cups. I think 2 will be more than enough. Looks good. Now my wife's favorite color is orange, so let's just experiment. We're gonna just put a couple drops of orange in this. See what 2 looks like. I don't know if you'll even be able to see 2, but I want it definitely see through. All right, here we go. Well, while that's in the pressure pot, it'll be tomorrow before I can look at it. I got the shovel head here. I think what I'm gonna do, you can see I got her down really nice and thin, but I'm just gonna take and sharpen on the back edge of this a little bit to thin that dirt cutting edge down a little. And then I think I'm gonna glue it. Maybe give it a little more protection, but let's sharpen it up. Got the back edge sharpened up, rounded off a little bit. You can see how thin I got that edge. Boy, I think it's gonna work pretty good. But I think I'm gonna glue it. Let's glue it. So I'm just gonna use some super blue gun glue. Buy it at Walmart, buy it at anywhere, any hardware store. I'm gonna clean it off with acetone to make sure we're all good. Make sure I don't have any fingerprints or anything on it. So I'm bluing it just to give it a little protection and I don't know, maybe make it look a little old. I'm not going for like the perfect blue. I mean, it's hammer forged. All right, let's rinse it off and spray it with some WD-40. I'm liking that look. Looks like it was made 100 years ago now. I think that'll work. Well, we're back. We had some storms come through, 4.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. Had a tornado hit about a half mile behind me here. We got some trees down, but we're back up. We got everything going. All good. So when I left the shovel, we had glued the blade of the shovel. It's heat treated, stamped, it's ready to be riveted together. And we formed up the handle and poured it. So I wasn't happy with the pour at all. But here is my pour. I'm not sure if I should have left the orange out of it or not, but where we're at right now is I poured it, there was a big inclusion in it. I do see a couple of air bubbles in it, but hey, we're just gonna see how it looks when it's done. So I need to sand this, get it to shape to what I want, and keep going finer and finer grits until I can polish it on the buffing wheel and we can actually have a good look at it. After we do that, we're going to go ahead and glue the socket here, and then we're going to rivet it together so it will actually become a shovel. So let's finish this up today. Got the handle buffed out. There's what it looks like. We'll have to look at it outside to see what this orange did. But definitely different. I do see some air bubbles in there, even though I put this in my pressure pot. Well, I was going to do the rivets hot, and I did a test rivet with one cold. It's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and rivet them over cold. So I'll show you my setup. So I got a 100-year-old rivet tool right here that's been beat on a lot. I just put it in my hand in my anvil, and I stuck a couple railroad spikes under it. That way when I hit it, it's perfectly solid. So I've got a little hole in it right here that'll make a rivet head. So I'll just drop the rivet head that I have in that. Well, here it is, folks. The shovel is done. So you can see the orange flakes in there. My wife likes the orange. I almost wished I hadn't put it in there. Do have a few air bubbles, but hey. Back of it, riveted over. So I'm done with it. I'm happy with it. I hope she loves it.